This is a story that was told to me by my grandma. She is native. This is a true story from her uncle. She was told it when she was a child. Her uncle was traveling through the woods on horseback. He had been traveling for quite some time and was very far out, miles from any sort of civilization. He and his horse were growing very tired, so he stopped to set up camp near the path. He tied his horse to a tree and made a small fire. It was still daylight out, but he wanted to cook lunch. A few minutes after starting the fire, he heard a voice from the distance. It sounded like a man yelling, though he must have been quite far away. It had been a few days since her uncle had last seen anybody, so he was eager for some company, and decided to start yelling back. At first he simply shouted, "Hey, I'm over here," and then decided to offer the man some coffee with "I've got coffee here." The shouting continued for a brief moment afterwards, and then stopped. Assuming he had been heard, he decided to start brewing some coffee. After a few minutes, he heard more shouting. This time it was closer. The shouting started to sound less like a man and more like a deer or a cougar. His horse suddenly became restless, and began shaking around, so he went over and tried to calm it down with some food. The strange shouting stopped, but the horse did not. It continued thrashing around and showed no interest in food or water. Uncle began wondering if the man was injured or hurt, and so he shouted, "Hey, are you all right? I'm over here," but got no response. After a few minutes of waiting, the shouting continued again. This time it sounded very close, and was very loud, and very inhuman. He began to get scared, when all of a sudden his horse bolted in the opposite direction, kicking him in the head and knocking him unconscious. When he awoke, his horse was gone and the rope was broken, and the campsite had been trashed. On the ground were large footprints, similar to a man's but almost twice the size. They lead in the direction that his horse had went. Her uncle searched around for hours, but found no trace of his horse or whatever it was that was yelling. He ended up having to hike his way out of the woods until he got to a nearby town, which took him a few days. He never saw his horse again. When I was 22, I went for a wander around Scotland. Mainly train journeys, but I would hike when and where I could. I cut it short because I stumbled upon some kind of ritual that scared me crapless. I got off the train in a town called Perth and Dalwhinnie, but I got lost in the woods. After hours of hiking, the sun had set and I saw a light in the woods which I thought was a house or hotel or something. So I got closer, but straight away knew it was some kind of ritual or gathering. It was a small clearing with some ruined wall, and from what I could see the people were all dressed in the same dark outfit. They had some kind of crate with them and were gathered near the wall with legit torches and a fire. I noped the fuck out and took off in the opposite direction, and I don't know if they saw me, but there was a shout which came from them. Could have been part of their ritual, or maybe they did see me, but as soon as I made some distance I ran as fast as I could down this hill, almost breaking my ankles like 8 times as I fell and rolled and got up. I lost my pack, but I kept running and found a road which I followed until a minivan stopped in front of me. It was some foreign student group who offered me a lift to town. I almost vomited and fainted from the running, but I had my wallet and cards in my trouser pocket, so I felt some relief. I managed to check into a B&B. The next day I spent a lot of money on train tickets to get home. Fucking terrified me.
I'm not going to green text this because it'd be too long. I don't know if it's really a creepy kid story, but I feel like I should tell someone about it. Several years ago, I was 16, and during the summer, I went, with 7 friends, to the countryside. I live in France, to chill out, have some fun and just talk next to a campfire. Me and my friends loved to just sit in a circle and talk. We were used to go to lost places next to forests or beautiful landscapes to stargaze and talk about random stuff until the sun rose. This time, my friend who usually chose the places we went to, if I recall well, his family was rich as fuck and had several mansions, so he knew about places in the countryside, told us we should go to that place. I can't remember the name, it didn't sound French, though, which was very calm. The nearest village was 1.5 kilometers away. He never told us how he got to know about that place. So the next Friday, at 6:30 p.m., we got in an old pickup truck, one of us had a fake license, and drove to the place we had decided to visit. I don't even know where it was exactly. At 8 p.m., we arrived. The night was beginning to fall. We had brought sleeping bags, wood, and matches, a bunch of blankets to feel comfy and some food. We decided to settle next to a big tree. We got under it, put the blankets and sleeping bags in place, parked the pickup truck, and made a campfire. None of us had brought our phones. I didn't bring anything apart from my watch, actually. At 9:15, we began talking and chilling out. One of us lit up a big cigar and passed it around. His father's, I think. I didn't like the cigar. At first, we were talking about the usual teenager stuff. High school, random facts about our parents, sex. We began eating Oreos one of us had brought, and the conversation became even more centered about sex. I felt like the atmosphere was warm, cozy. I felt comfortable. My friend who chose the place began talking about his first and only sexual encounter. I remember him saying with a low voice, as if his parents could hear him, that the girl's vagina felt like the inside of your cheek when he put his finger in it. I think we talked about stuff like that for 15 minutes before things started to get strange. It started with one guy, his name was Byron. We were joking about orgasms and stuff, when he said the sentence that made us all uncomfortable. "I really get turned on by suffering girls," was what he said. Just like that. We looked at him for a few seconds, and then he continued. "I mean, when they're in pain, beg for mercy, that makes me feel more pleasure." Some of us did talk about their own, personal sex life before Byron, but nobody actually got into fetishes or anything like that. I think that I should have left at that moment. It would have broken that circle of 8 people, it probably would have stopped them from doing anything stupid. But I didn't leave, because I was a teen, and therefore, I had that little perverted part of me that wanted to hear more. Another guy, his name was Alexander, broke the silence. "I don't think that's that strange. I kind of like submission, too," was basically what he said. And then, we all started to talk about our weird fantasies. We were alone, in the countryside, with nobody else to hear us. We were good friends, so we shared secrets. But I don't think we should have told ourselves about those secrets. Someone else started talking about hurting girls. And we started to go down the rabbit hole. Hurting, then raping. Then tying up, pissing, killing. And torturing. I was the one who started the torture part. I wish I had stood silent. But I didn't, because, like I said earlier, I had that perverted teen mind. I said something like sexual torture actually seems pretty arousing, sometimes. Everyone looked at me, and Byron grinned. I remember that fucked up Cheshire smile. Like he wanted to hear more about that shit, like he really enjoyed it. I didn't realize that he grinned, because I too became a little aroused. The sky was dark, now, and the campfire wasn't enough for us to see around us. I couldn't even see the faces of some of my friends. Someone else started talking about actual details of torture. I don't remember exactly what he said, I don't want to, either. Something along the lines of flaying. And other stuff. Anyway. After some time, we calmed down. We stopped talking about all that shit. We were more silent. We had all finished eating, and just sat there, around that fire, not saying anything. Now the following stuff is nope material. Stay with me. I suddenly broke the silence, asking the guy next to me if he had any more Pringles or something stupid like that. Just to break that awkward, terrifying, actually, silence. He told me that he didn't. I shrugged, and took a piece of wood we had left, and threw it in the fire, which had started dying out. After a few seconds, the fire started to grow again. Save a few sneezes and someone cracking his knuckles, as well as the fire, there wasn't any sound. I started to drift into sleep, and happened to count the number of heads I saw. 1, 2, 3, 4, that was Byron dash, 5, 6, Alexander, 7, 8. I didn't realize until a few seconds. We were 8. And I saw 8 people. And then I nearly pissed myself. Nobody had noticed, apparently, not yet. I tapped the shoulder of the guy next to me. Discreetly. "What?" he said with a low voice. He just woke up, apparently. I told him, simply, "Count everyone." He asked me what the fuck did that mean, and then counted. When he realized, he looked at me with increasing fear. Strangely, nobody else moved. Well, they did breathe, but they stood still, like they were waiting for something. Or maybe they were asleep, I don't know. That warm atmosphere I felt at the beginning of the evening had transformed into a cold numbness, like the one you fear in nightmares when you know something is going to happen. The torture stories had apparently made me vulnerable to strain, and I was more afraid than ever. The 8th individual, who sat next to another tree, was shorter than my brothers. I don't know how long I waited, maybe half an hour. After a long silence, during which I thought I would literally shit myself, with the guy next to me breathing heavily, apparently, he was just as scared, the little intruder talked, waking everyone up. He spoke with a kid's voice. High-pitched, yet not that childish. He had the same tone than a kid I knew in primary school, who had fanatic religious, abusive parents. Yeah, he had that unusually mature tone. "Hurting other people makes you feel good?" he asked. I don't know who he was talking to, maybe to all of us who took part in that stupid discussion. Everyone else started freaking out, some of us stood up. Alexander picked up a bottle of oil, where did he get that? I don't know, and, while backing off the kid, threw some liquid in the fire, creating a huge flame which temporarily lit up everyone's faces brightly. I don't remember what the kid looked like, honestly. It was a boy, with black hair. I think he wore some kind of long jacket, even though it was warm outside. The kid didn't move while everyone else freaked out. Strangely, nobody moved towards him or asked anything. We all waited for him to say something else, I guess. He did. He said one last sentence before leaving, "I escaped the house, but it'll hurt again." And then he ran. Back to the nearest village, maybe. Everyone stood there, shocked, for a minute. Nobody followed that kid, of course not. We all went to sleep in the pickup truck. The next day, nobody talked about what had happened. We didn't say anything apart from "Hey, what's up, I'm hungry," etc. Everyone knew something had happened that wasn't quite right. We got back to Paris and never mentioned that incident again. I'm still in touch with one of the guys, Alexander. We have never talked about this, well, not really. Sometimes, when I'm with him, he just looks at me with a strange glance, like if he was asking what the fuck happened that night. I don't know. What was that house? And what hurt? I hope I'll never know, but it still bugs me, sometimes.
I saw one of those fuckers once. I used to love hiking with my dog. She and I would go on hikes in our area for like 30-60 minutes just for exercise, and I'd find cool rocks or pick wild berries. Just general outdoor faggotry. A few years ago in mid-May, just when it was getting warm enough at night to go back hiking again, I set out and started walking with my dog, who is an 85-pound German Shepherd, from a family of police dogs. She was the runt, and wasn't getting fed by the mom, so I rescued her. We were halfway through our hike when my dog just fucking stopped like someone stomped on the brakes of a car going 60 miles per hour. I tried pulling her with all my strength and she refused to move forward. Then I saw her tail between her legs, and she was growling really low, and started peeing. I was freaking the fuck out cause we have black bears in the area, and I don't carry a gun. I just had a folding knife in my pocket. So I looked forward on the trail, and there was this human-sized creature, all white and pale, no clothing, no hair. Huge black eyes that reflected light, you could see they were shiny like glass or wet. It lowered down closer to the ground like it was trying to sneak or go into attack mode, and I just fucking ran for my life. I turned around and literally grabbed my dog by the face and ran down the hill and into the cul-de-sac where my neighbor's house is. He's a retired military vet from Desert Storm or some shit. So I ran into his backyard and was screaming for him. I explained what happened, and he looked like so pale and white in his face, like he was freaking out. But he explained to me, he had been seeing this creature in his backyard and the wooded area for weeks. And he thought it was flashbacks or something cause PTSD. After that, I didn't go hiking again for about 3 months, and never alone anymore. My dog won't even go on that trail, if we get close to it she starts whining. I ran out of space. But this was in Pennsylvania near the border to Maryland where I used to live before I took a job in New York. Now I go hiking in Central Park. Never seen any more rakes, but I did see a black guy get stabbed. I vividly remember as a little kid having some sort of encounter with what could have been a rake or a skinwalker. Be me, 7 years old kid in southern Nevada. Playing around behind house at about 7 or 8 p.m. Getting dark out, off because it's not pitch black yet. Playing pretend, running around with a trash can lit in a stick as a night. Run up to the top of this hill behind my house and look down at the bottom of the driveway. See this naked guy crouched by our dumpster. What.mov. Transfixed, watching him. Dude's really fucking pale and seems to be twitching a lot. He's not completely naked, wearing some kind of brownish cloak. He seems to sniff the air, notice his face is almost like a coyote's. Howls, sounds like a really fucked up, warbly coyote howl. Suddenly get pants shittingly terrified. Run down the hill. Trip. Burst into tears out of fear that the guy is gonna get me. Mom comes out back, finds me and thinks I'm hurt so she takes me in. I try to tell her about what I saw. I'm only 7 at the time so it gets dismissed as a kid's imagination. Fast forward a few days later 2 of our 5 dogs go missing. Fast forward I learn many years later when I'm 16 that my dad found the corpse of one of our dogs mutilated and strung across a rock to rot in the sun. Ooh, I get stabbed.
Look, okay, I'll add my 2 cents. I never seen a rake, but if somebody who is not a compulsive liar told me they saw one, then I am obligated to believe them because I do have second-hand account of a real dogman and I know dogman is 100% real, okay? Can you expand on the dogman story? Both of my parents saw a dogman at the same time. It was on a country highway at night. What do you want to know? General location, size, was it standing on 2 legs? Color and coat length? It was just outside of a town called Newark in Illinois. If you go on maps there is a bridge that leads to a dealership. My parents were driving towards the bridge leaving the town and speeding up to about 50 to 60 as they passed the bridge out of town, and it ran across the road in front of them and looked at them as it went. It was on 2 legs but walked like it was in pain and limping like a Quasimodo but super fast. It held its arms up limp and across its chest like a retard doing a Hawaiian dance. It appeared out of a mist and disappeared into a mist on the other side of the road. It had a hunchback too. It was over 6 feet tall. Muscular upper body and arms, claws, tapered torso, muscular thighs, and huge hocks like a dog and a tail. It was brown and had medium fur like a wolf. They said it looked just like a werewolf. We actually agreed to disagree between it being a werewolf, what they called it, or an escaped bear/monkey, what I thought they saw, because neither of us never heard of a dogman. Furthermore, my parents were not speaking when they witnessed it, and only talked 30 minutes later and had identical sighting and did not make up a story together. They actually wish they never saw it and it frightens my mom. They're afraid to talk about it to anyone because people will think they're crazy. We seriously never heard of a dogman until years after they saw it and I decided to look it up and found Beast of Bray Road. They say it was the most evil thing they ever saw. This is where it ran across left to right. To the left is a small town and a river close by. To the right are farm fields and farmhouses. It must have been around 10 to 11 p.m.
Okay, didn't wanna have to type it unless it got at least a few replies. Not great at green texts but cope old fags. Be my scout leader. Be aged 27-ish. Be trying to find self/religion etc. Decide to go to Ute tribe since hell the Indians are well known for spirit quests and he already has a friend from the tribe. It should be said this is set sometime in the late 70s. Be avid outdoorsman/Innawoods kind of guy, so also brings along his 1903 Springfield in 3006 and some 38. Revolver. Keeps 1903 Springfield in truck but gotta keep that thing on you, so stows 38. Revolver in pants. Meets up with local tribe and gets introduced through friend. Gets to know a couple, the head tribesmen and medicine men who conduct the rituals and help with spirit quests. After a while asked to join them for a sweat lodge/peyote session. Since he's gotten in cool with them they agree. Have to drive and follow the tribe to some religious/sacred ground where they have set up a sweat lodge area. As stated before, keep rifle in car but brings along revolver. Goes as per custom, removes shirt and shoes but keeps on pants. They begin the ritual and everything is going okay. The head tribesman there begins chanting and telling native stories and legends of the tribe. Scout leader starts hallucinating to the stories but is staying semi-coherent. After a while a howl breaks the air and the head tribesman grows quiet. The men listen in and hear large steps approaching the tent. Soon vicious snarling and growling can be heard. The head tribesmen start praying loudly in native and starts encouraging the other to do the same. Another howl is heard, this time behind my scout leader. Quickly produces the 38. And snaps around to shoot the creature. A howl of pain is heard before a large paw slashes open the tent. Shortly after, movement can be heard of the creature running away from the tent. Scout leader sees a large patchy-haired creature with a small bloody gash in its side from the bullet. Now the head tribesman is urging everyone to move towards the vehicles they came in. My scout master rushes to his truck and retrieves the rifle. Turns quickly to see the rest of the tribes also producing firearms from their cars. They all start running after the dogman creature, popping off random shots towards it. The dogman now rushing towards a wooded creek bed. My scout master tries to place at least one good shot in. He steadies himself and levels the rifle center mass at the dogman as he pulls the trigger as calm as he can. They all hear another howl of pain as it just makes it into the woods. The group decide to keep booking it towards the creature and eventually make it to the wooded creek bed. Upon reaching the creek bed they all notice one. They can no longer hear its loud footsteps too. The tracks end as soon as it hits the creek and 3. It's almost impossible to see. After re-evaluating possibly getting eaten, they decide to stay grouped up, guns at the ready, and slowly start moving up and down the creek looking for tracks on either side and can't find any. Quickly all realize it couldn't have made it any farther down the creek without them being able to see it once they got to the creek. They all decide to quit the search and head back to their vehicles. Shortly after, the tribe didn't allow anyone near this part of the reservation. Fast forward, my scout master shot this thing with 30-06 and it didn't go down. The head tribesman also stated that it couldn't have been a hallucination as everyone saw it and peyote isn't powerful enough. So that was the time my scout master encountered a dogman. Is he common in the cryptids of Utah/Ute natives? I posted a thread about this before but it never got much attention. Be my grandfather. Mother needs to be picked up on the other side of town one night in the 90s when she was young. He gets in his car and leaves to go get her. Comes back, pulls in driveway. Car engine shuts off. Massive aura of light appears over his vehicle and lights up the ground around the car. Trying and trying but car still won't start. White dots start appearing everywhere, on the dash, the seats, everywhere inside the car, like a disco sort of. To me it seems like some sort of scan. Pop was pissing himself in laughter because he didn't have a clue what was going on and thought the whole situation was funny. Wasn't even afraid, because at the moment he didn't think it was anything extraordinary. Light fades and goes away. Car is able to start again. Grandmother was watching from the window and said it looked like a spaceship. Still amazes me every time he tells it over the beer. I got like an 80-foot long driveway too, so my grandmother would have gotten a good view of it. Where and when was this, Anon? Sometime in the early 90s. Not sure the exact year, and right here where I'm at right now. I still live with my grandparents in their house, as do my parents, because this house is kind of like a two-story apartment. I'm only 20 years old. If you meant by actual location, I'm from central Newfoundland, Canada, not even really a hotspot for UFO sightings. There is one famous one from a cop in Clairville back in the 60s. My pop also tells me that this house is built onto an old Indian grave site. There are a few of them scattered around the town and surrounding areas where I reside. I always feel a little uneasy when I'm outside at night by myself. I've experienced 2 orb sightings before too, one actually yesterday morning. I posted a thread here about it but it got buried, was hoping to get some good answers about what I saw. Car engine shuts off. Massive aura of light appears over his vehicle and lights up the ground around the car. Trying and trying but car still won't start. So close encounters of the third kind and the X-Files were spot on. Sometime in the early 90s. Newfoundland, Canada. Right when the X-Files was filming this stuff in Canada. Nice. Yeah, fucking blew my mind when he first told the story. And I never even seen the X-Files. The most interesting part about it though that I haven't heard from another story are the white dots. And how they were moving around inside the car like a disco. I've experienced 2 orb sightings. How big were they? What color? In the house or outside? I never even seen the X-Files. You should. I'm thoroughly convinced that Chris Carter was read into actual black budget shit and other CIA level phenomena. First one was last October. Me and my brother went outside one night to smoke a joint. As we went out and turned to the right towards the neighboring garden, we both saw a bright amber-colored orb floating above a birch tree, as soon as we caught eye of it. It started to move out of sight around the corner of our house, never seen it afterwards, looked like it was about the size of a bowling ball or basketball, hard to tell from distance. And then yesterday morning I went outside at around 4:50 a.m., just before the sun broke the horizon, as I was walking by the car in my garden and I saw in the corner of my eye a pure white ball zoom by the car, did a little swirl and went up over the garage about 15 to 20 feet from me. Note that there was no wind whatsoever, and it had an unnatural white glow to it too. It wasn't dimmed by the early morning. But the thing is, it was really small compared to the first one I saw, like only an inch or 2 in diameter. We have no fireflies here so I don't know what else it could have been. It amazed me though and felt really positive seeing it. TLDR, first one was bright amber and the size of a bowling or basketball, second was only an inch or 2 in size and pure white. Forgot to mention it was only 3 to 4 feet from me when I first saw the small one. Then it zoomed up over the garage. Wow. All I know about orbs is that the small white ones are supposedly spirits. But since you've had a ship pay a visit, who knows? Maybe the Ayys are keeping an eye on your family. You know, I've actually thought about that before. Like, why are they coming here in particular? Something I didn't mention about the large one is, we have a camper, and my family was actually out in it drinking that night, and that birch tree is only about 20 feet from that camper as opposed to me and my brother seeing it from about 100 feet away. I have heard that larger orbs can possibly be ETS or UFO and cloaking or something about it breaking through the dimension barrier. I've followed some of Dr. Greer's work and even tried meditation in attempt to make contact, but I was never successful in the moment. Or was I? Pick relate is the birch tree. Maybe they're just probes. There are many species of eye that have been running in and out of here, and maybe one of them picked your family to be a case study in familial living and relationships. If it was me at your age, I'd be out there all the time trying to make contact, but I've wanted off this planet since I was 12. Sounds like your life is pretty cozy up there? Oh yeah. Impossible to miss a glowing basketball-sized orb floating above a tree in the open like that. I disable the screen rotate on my phone to review pics because sometimes my camera will think the phone is orientated the wrong way. Yeah, it's pretty nice here. I'd even call it one of the most peaceful places in Canada. Very safe geologically too. I'm in a pretty small town, surrounded by other slightly larger towns, and all forest in between. There are vast amounts of uninhabited woods here. The people out in the camper didn't even notice it. Maybe it only moved when my brother caught sight of it. I envy you, Leaf Bro. If you experience anything else, please post it, but you should probably save it for the green text threads like this. I think that /x/ is mostly glowfag watchers and albots that, combined with the debunkershills and super schizos, keep organic threads down. In short, I think /x/ is pretty much dead. So don't be surprised when your threads don't survive for long. I live right next to water too. I bought myself a cabin cruiser boat a couple months ago. Can't wait to get that out now. But not even kidding about the peace here. After 12 AM at night, cars and people on the street are near non-existent. Also, I definitely will. And I've learned that recently LOL feels like a data mine now. Might have men in black show up at my door, haha. I bought myself a cabin cruiser boat a couple months ago. Yeah, no, once you get going, the boys over on /out/ would appreciate your input to their boating threads, or you could definitely make your own. Threads on /out/ go much slower than /x/, so a lot more time is given between posts before a thread gets archived. And as a bonus, they have occasional spoopa threads too. Maybe see if you can get that orb to follow you on your boat trips. Wave to it and let it know you are not afraid of it or whomever is controlling it. Feels like a data mine now. Yes. Yes, it does. Might have men in black show up at my door, haha. As it stands now, not likely. But if you were to, say, post pics of that big orb for us, then maybe. Kick. Okay, I have one that happened to me quite a while ago. Be me, 21, it's late August and my senior year of college is starting. Enrolled in a hiking and camping class as an easy way to fill some gen ed credit stuff. Class is all obnoxious freshman guys. Regret.jpg. 2 junior girls join for second class. Class breaks to groups of 3 and they ask me into their group. One has a boyfriend, the other is a 6 out of 10 who's giving me serious diff vibes, and generally seems chill. End up hiking and hanging outside class. Make plans to camp nearby one weekend. I pick an easy local trail and camping area near a small lake. Show off my ability to cook over fires and enjoy the scenery and even dip in the water. It's still reasonably warm in early September. Lie down and progress from snuggling to sex twice. She needs to pee and I go out with her and stand watch. Hear rustling slightly, point flashlight at it, she screams. I don't see anything and assure her it was an animal. We go back to the tent and I show her me carefully zipping the flap closed and turning both poles into the tent. We snuggle and end up having sex again. Her hips are hurting since we're in round 3, so we switch to me behind her, and while I'm looking down at her I then look up and through the tent wall. I swear I see a light in the woods, not at us but moving across. I figure it's a night hiker and I'm also not going to stop railing a girl to investigate a light in the woods. Finish and it's the furthest thing from my mind. Lay awake and cuddle her, she's asleep quick. I doze off but wake up quickly. I realize I desperately have to piss now. The main door is facing the lake and she's basically in front of it. There's a second door that has a clump of cedars directly by it, but I sneak out that way. Stand by the trees and look at the moon and stars reflecting on the lake while I piss. I'm bare ass and it's starting to cool down due to the time of year and no cloud cover. I turn and walk over to the opposite side of the tent, passing the door facing the lake. Suddenly thinking of the noise and light earlier. In the moonlight where the woods is more open I see movement when I stop. Can literally see a human shape crawling sort of angled through the low brushy shit. Can't even tell which end is which or clothing color, just a shape slow crawling. Debate saying something or shining the light. Honestly feeling borderline panic as I consider all the implications. See a head pick up, realized it's a person or humanoid crawling backwards, now staring at me. My skin is crawling. Realize I'm literally naked in the woods staring down unknown assailants. Crawler still hasn't moved since picking head up. Jump to tent and grab zipper. It sticks, see that it's 4 inches up and tangled in the nylon. Realize this is the zipper I had made a show of sealing inside. Nearly screamed. Run to the other side and jump on. Have hatchet and knife out of bag and don't sleep. Packed out early. I sometimes wonder what and why someone was out there. I also wonder if me staring someone down bare-assed scared them. I can only hope. Can you tell us what campground this is or what the name of the lake is? Or just the general area? Central Vermont, near Killington, or Rutland areas.
I used to work at a gas station in one of my country's bigger cities, Eastern Europe shithole. It was nested in the bigger residential area at the edge of the city, right behind it was a factory. Because the place where the station was built didn't belong to the gas station company, but to some Jews, the company decided to stop operating it and close it down. I was promptly given a month's notice and was then asked by the dealer, the boss above the manager, to stay as guard a few nights until crews came to collect everything. It was nice, inviting friends to drink beer, smoke, and then banter for a few hours literally doing nothing. The interesting thing happened at my last shift. I clocked in at 7 p.m, the recovery crews had cut the power to the outside, the pumps and the lamps on top of the cover. So it was pitch black, the lights coming from the main boulevard next to the station. After a few hours of beer and cigarettes consumption, the boys left and I sat at the bar stools to watch Fist of the North Star. At 1 a.m, I saw all the street cats that lived in the area behind the station just beelining it towards the boulevard, just running scared. I only saw them running because of the lights from the boulevard. And after I began hearing meowing, like mechanical meowing. Just meow meow meow. And it didn't stop. I wasn't really paying attention though, so annoyed I went to the office, as it wasn't even being used, there were no cameras left at that point. I sat on the chair, placed my legs on the table and tried to drift asleep. Then I heard it, the back door started knocking, very light and barely noticeable knock. It kept knocking mechanically. I was starting to freak out at that point. Went to the bar area and after a minute the meowing started again. Then I went to the office, 1 minute, and began knocking. I was quite depressed at the time and was like, fuck it, if it's something paranormal I don't have the means to fight it beyond making the sign of the cross. I am Orthodox Christian, so if it kills me, good. And then I remembered something about vampires or evil spirits not being able to enter buildings uninvited, so I just in the office. This shit kept up to 6 a.m. in the morning until the light of dawn. It was July. And then stopped. Haven't been there since and I don't want to. So could it have been a crackhead or a homo or a gypsy? Drug addicts and alcoholics aren't a rarity, but my guess is they would have tried to enter in the station since, why would they hang in the back? These people usually try to make contact with people. Gypsy. There wasn't anything to steal, besides, the gypsies in that particular ghetto pay their bills, so they are well enough not to steal.
Since we're on the topic of scouts and camping, I have a kinda spooky but not supernatural story from when I went camping as a kid. I was going camping with my uncle's family and some friends. It was me, their son and daughter, my cousins obviously, and 2 mutual friends of school, all of us 10 to 14. The plan was to stay for a week over the summer, but things got called short after a couple days. I mostly hated the idea, but my parents wanted me to get some fresh air. We got up in the mountains. My allergies were killing me, I was covered in mosquito bites, and frankly I would rather being playing Diamond and Pearl at home. Tells you how old this story is. We spend the day hiking and stop at a campsite to set up the tents, the girl with my aunt and uncle and all the boys together. None of us can sleep, so we just flare up out flashlights and talk about bullshit for a few hours until we wear ourselves out. Topic comes to scary stories and my cousin tells us a doozy. Apparently the town nearby had a killer that disappeared in these woods a few years ago. He tells us he was a disgruntled husband who had to work 2 jobs to support his family. He apparently got fired and came home to see his wife cheating on him with some dude. He snaps and grabs an axe from outside. Kills his wife, the guy she was cheating on him with, and their 5 kids before vanishing into the woods. He tells us that he's still running around the mountains killing any woman or kid he sees. It was a creepy story, but all of us, I think, knew it was bullshit. We eventually tire ourselves out talking about whatever dumb shit kids like and go to sleep. Next day rolls around and we start hiking again. My aunt and uncle stop to film shit or something. I think they were into making wildlife/nature videos as a hobby or something like that, I can't remember. All of us just kinda wander off while they're filming because kids are stupid. Little cousin says she needs to pee. tell her just to go find a bush and she walks off. About 30 seconds later we all hear a scream. We go to find her and see she running away from something after pissing herself. We go look where she was running from to see what got her spooked. See a old ass fallen tree laying on top of what looked like a human skeleton holding an axe. Trip ends for obvious reasons and we all go back home that night. 99% sure that skeleton was unrelated to the bullshit story my cousin told me, but still, I remember that standing out to me when I was a kid.
So basically this was either so weird half asleep idea that creeped into my head or possibly just a nightmare that I happen to vividly remember from when I was really young. I don't exactly remember the beginning, but you can make up whatever and lead it into the main body. Be walking at night. It's a darker night than usual. No moon, faint stars. As you walk you open into some sort of a large clearing. It's okay, it's part of your normal path. You continue enter what you would call the equivalent of highway hypnosis but for walking. You keep walking and strangely it's getting even darker. The stars are gone. There's no visible horizon. You can't even make out the sky from the ground. You look to your feet which you cannot see, sweeping your head to look straight above. All you see is an even shade of black from bottom to top. You continue. Unsure of where you are, you rely on your other senses that can help gather info as to your surrounding, sound, and feel. You hear nothing except the crunching of the ground as you walk. You feel that you are still outdoors. A light crunch and the occasional gravel, but the ground is unusually perfectly flat, smooth terrain for being outdoors. Especially since you were just walking somewhere completely familiar. How long ago? You summon your next sense to feel for some type of input, sound. Issuing a yell, it travels endlessly, in all direction. Not a reply. No rustling, no wind, no insects, or creatures of the night. Nothing, you are nowhere. That's when you stop. You've been traveling in a straight line for, how long now? And there hasn't been a single variation in terrain or obstacle in your way. You are nowhere. You begin to start walking in all directions hoping to gain some bearing. Stopping, turning, starting again, walking for some time and again, nothing changes. You start panicking, wondering how you got here, and pause and make one sudden turn facing nowhere. Then you see it. It is the only thing you've been able to see since you've been here. And at first place there isn't much there. It's distant, maybe 100 yards away. But how did it get? How did you notice it all this time? As you squint to find out what it is, it become quite clear, horrifying clear, very fast. At first, you notice the contrast. It's not only not black, it's the opposite, it white. It's not only white, it's actually light. Coming from a single, lone, street light. At first you're immediately drawn to it, thinking this is some salvation or exit to wherever you are. But then you look at what's been lit and you see him. A perfectly black silhouette. In fact, it's so black you can't even discern the light curving over his shoulders to imply some 3D form. He stands still, perfectly stiff, hand on hips, directly facing you. You decide directly walking towards him may not be the best idea. Instead you walk perpendicular to him and see if he reacts. After walking some distance, his stance hasn't changed and still faces you directly. After zigzagging, and advancing and retreating and circling the light a few times, nothing changes. Just a dark human-like silhouette that knows you're there, and may have what you need. Well /x/ do you meet and greet and or stay in the dark? I've got a pretty good one my friend told me a while back. I originally posted this on /x/ a while back, so I already have it all typed up. It really got to me the first time I heard it, so I like sharing it. Anyway, just some backstory. My high school town was pretty small, my graduating class had around 200 people in it, I think. It is also kind of in the middle of nowhere. There is really only one main road going through the center, all the other roads are back roads going through the woods. I will be retelling. the story from a first-person perspective because I think it will be easier and sound less awkward if I don't have to keep saying he did this and he did that. I'm going to do my best to tell it to you exactly the way he said it happened. Here we go. It was pretty fucked up, and I don't even know how else to describe it. Just thinking about what could have happened terrifies me. It was January, junior year, and I was dating Kayla, not real name. We wanted to fool around but we didn't have anywhere to do it, so we decided to find a random road where we could park my car. We had done it a couple of times before without any incidents. So at like 2 in the morning, we drove all the way down Adobe, you know the road by the gas station? We got to the end. And there was a horse trail branching off into the woods. It was pretty wide, so we decided to drive to the end of the horse trail. When we got to the end, I turned the car around so that the woods were to our back and the road was in front. This way I could see if another car was coming down the trail. So if you know Kayla at all, she is pretty crazy. But all she wanted to do was fuck, so I was thinking with my dick. We had sex probably 4 times, it was awesome. We were taking a break from this, cuddling in my backseat when things started to get weird. There was a loud noise coming from the woods. It kind of sounded like screaming, I'm pretty sure it was an animal dying, it definitely wasn't human. So that kind of put me on edge, but I wasn't really that concerned. 10 minutes later, we hear more screaming. This time though it sounded more human to me. Like I was pretty confident that a person was screaming out there. And it went on for probably a minute. I'm freaking out now, but Kayla was getting horny again, so she was trying to convince me everything was fine. I was too distracted by the thought of more sex, so I decided to stick around. More accurately, my dick decided that I was going to stick around. The screaming had stopped though, so I slowly settled back in. About 20 minutes later though, we hear a very distinct voice yelling in the woods. Help! Help me! It was a male voice, and it sounded like it was maybe 50 meters away. Now I'm freaking out, and even Kayla was starting to get scared. She wanted to go and see if someone was hurt, but I told her fuck no, we are staying in the car. So we waited out. And 10 minutes later we hear it again. Help! Please help me! Really loud this time, and closer, probably 30 meters from the car now. We both went silent. All the windows were fogged up, so we couldn't even see outside. Finally, logic trumps my dick and I start to get ready to get the hell out of there. I start putting on my pants and looking for my keys. I had climbed into the front seat when a pickup truck came from somewhere off the path about 100 meters in front of us. The truck pulled over to the side and parked. A guy gets out and starts shining a red flashlight around the road and then into the woods. I'm frozen in fear, and Kayla is grabbing my arm and telling me not to leave until this guy does. He eventually starts wandering closer to the edge of the road near the woods. I start to breathe a little easier and continue to look for my keys. Kayla started to say she found the key, but before she could, right outside my car we hear more yelling. Help! Help me! Please! It's not even 5 meters away now. Kayla slams the keys into my hand and I peel out as fast as possible, probably fucking my car up. I'm doing probably 70 down this shitty path. We start approaching the truck and I see the guy with the red light turn around. I just floor it past him. I drive Kayla straight home, and I remember telling her, I don't care what the consequences are with your parents, you are going home right now. We might have just seen something terrible. I go home, tell my mom my stomach hurt and went to sleep. The next morning I was going bowling with a friend, and I told him the story. He said, He wanted to go back to where it happened to see if there were footprints because he didn't believe me. There was a lot of snow on the ground, but it hadn't snowed that night, so there should be clear footprints. We drove back out there, and sure enough, there were footprints. And these prints told a story. My friend wanted to be a cop, so he considered himself an expert on the evidence. I don't know if he actually does know what he's talking about, but a lot of what he was saying made sense logically. Anyway, we went back. First, we checked out where it appeared the truck had stopped. The night before I had thought the truck had come out of the woods and onto the path, but it was clear now that it had come down the road just like we had. You could see tire tracks in the snow where it had pulled over. You could also see the footprints where red light guy got out. We followed the prints into the woods. They went only 15 or 20 meters back. They led to a huge pile of deer bones. And when I say huge, they were at least 20 different deer skulls. The returning footprints just led back to the truck, so we decided to check out the area where Kayla and I were. This is where things got really interesting. Where did this happen? Minnesota. The first thing we noticed when we pulled up was the place where I had sped off. You could tell I was hauling ass. There were a lot of footprints around the car. It must have been a common place for people to park. So we went into the woods behind where I was parked, and towards the direction the screams for help had come from. We eventually found some footprints, and there were no other ones in the area. They looked fresh and big. Size 12s, my friend guessed. So we followed them. They went in the direction of where my car had been parked. What was weird was the way they got closer. The footprints would zigzag in the general direction of my car. But once they got close enough to be in viewing distance of my car, the prints would stop every so often. You could tell the maker of the prints had stopped and stayed in these spots for a while. My friend pointed out that the prints at these spots were more defined and that the snow was melted more, indicating that he had waited at these spots. And at all of these spots, the prints were facing my car. The prints continued to get closer to my car, stopping every so often. They get about 10 meters from my car before they stop for the last time. This time though, you can tell that he wasn't standing. He was kneeling. There was a clear, defined print of someone's knee. After that, the footprints start to get really spread out. It looked like he started sprinting after my car when I sped off. That's it? Thoughts? Interpretations? I have a theory about what was going on, but I'd love to hear other thoughts. My theory is that the guy who was calling for help was trying to get my friend and his girlfriend out of the car so he could murder them or something. Which terrifies me because if I was in that situation, I may have gotten out of the car to try and help. I'm not sure about the guy driving the truck. He may have just been a deer poacher dumping deer bones. Don't know if it's paranormal, but had a kinda spoopy one. Be living in the Ozarks. Ask a bro if he wants to go squirrel hunting. It's fucking cold, like 10 degrees with heavy wind, overcast, shin deep snow. It's been miserable cold for a week but supposed to finally get a break in the cloud cover. Figure they'll start moving once the sun comes out. Spend the whole damn day hiking like 5 miles. Sun never comes out, cold as fuck, beard literally full of ice. Right before we turn around to head back, something walks out into the trail ahead of us about 300 yards off. Takes a second to tell what it is. It's the biggest fucking coyote I've ever seen. Easily the size of a medium whitetail. It's limping pretty bad. Kind of circles around and then heads into the brush. Bro and me look at each other and talk it out. We decide to put it out of its misery since it looks pretty badly hurt and spring is a long way off. Not too stoked about chasing a big ass coyote in the brush, but snow is thick so it should be easy to follow. We take a few minutes to talk it over. By the time we make a decision, it comes back out of the brush. It's walking just fine and looks our way. We're happy we don't have to put it down, so we watch it for a minute until it disappears and then head back. On the way back, we keep seeing big ass coyote tracks on or near our trail. Once we reach a hill, I look back and see that big fucker watching us from about a quarter mile off. I let hunting bro know. He turns back and sees it right as it takes off into the brush again. Spend the rest of the hike back watching our rear while hunting bro watches on each side of the trail. Get to vehicle, toss shit in car and fuck off real quick. We've been out there a lot since then. We only see it when the weather is fucking bad, and only at a distance. I'm planning on getting all gillied up this winter and getting it. I want to make a cowl out of him.
Anyone have that full photo? Let me check my hard drive. I should still might have the original I took. Got it. Only took like 20 minutes trying to find the most horrifying picture I've ever taken. If you want the original high-res picture I took. Also, here's another shot I took that night of the house. You can see my roommates in the upper story with their flashlights on their cheeks. And again, that's the glow of a candle you see in the first story. Let's play Spot the Pigman. Let me know when you find him. Looks like he's behind the Jeep. I think those are his ears poking up. Yup, I never used that one, but I've always figured it was him. Thought I'd keep it to myself since you couldn't see his face or body. Freaks me out since it was so dark out that I never noticed these things. It's why I don't like the dark. Is it really you, Pigmanfam? You know it. What do you want to know about that night? First I wanna know, any repeat experiences or new stories to tell? From Pigman? Not after that night, fortunately/unfortunately. I did have some pretty messed up nightmares in that house, and a weird shared consciousness experience while I lived there, but nothing more really came of it. Witnessed an apparition at the house I lived in after that and had my furniture completely rearranged while I was out. After that house, nothing too crazy at all. I will say this, the Upper Peninsula, like deep up there, can really fuck with you sometimes. So wait, he was there when you had friends over? I gotta reread the story. I lived with others. This was in college. That's weird. I thought you were Hotline Miami'd by the Pigman or something. It's always weird to find the storytellers. Yeah, I hope I'm not fucking anything up for you. I'll seriously bounce if I am. I enjoy seeing my story get told around here and other places, just thought I'd drop by and satisfy any curiosities. I also hate the "there's a TV and lights in the house" claim, so that's what made me come out of the woodwork. No offense, but it could easily have just been you and a mate with a pig mask in the dark. Would be so easy. Don't get me wrong. A very good role play and creative story. It just seems so easy. None taken. I got that a lot when I first posted about it. Honestly surprised I don't see this point made more than the "how could power be out when I see your TV lights on?" Then again, this doesn't get shared that often at all. I do prefer to think it was one of my friends fucking with me, makes me feel better about the whole thing. Please describe any sounds it made to the best of your ability, or the tension as it was slamming around the house. The Pigman was silent that night while I was out there with it. I remember it being an awfully quiet night while I did my photography, and I never once heard it move or produce its own noise. The tension was unreal when it slammed into the house's front door. You ever feel the back of your neck go red hot when you get legitimately frightened? Mine was, especially since the door had glass panels in it and I had to turn around to make sure it was locked. I was not prepared to see anything at that moment. Thank God I didn't. I would have had heart failure or something, cause my heart was racing. As it continued, mostly around my room on the exterior walls, I just felt dread. I've lived a somewhat sheltered and safe life, and coming to the reality that you're not safe made my blood run cold. As for discovering him in the picture, afterwards, ever have your chest spike with sharp pain, your nose tingle like it was burning to sneeze, and your eyes tear up on account of sudden fright or dreadful realization? That's what I felt as I saw what had been terrorizing me. Seriously, realizing that the boogeyman is real was the worst feeling in the world. I felt stripped of my comfort for the ridiculous and easily explained spooky things in life. Yeah, that twig breaking in the woods that you could ignore before? Nah, it's the pigman, watching me. You ever wonder where he went or heard anything about him from anyone else? I showed the picture to the others in my house, but none of them had any stories to add. That just made me feel worse, like I was being targeted for a reason. I wondered, and I had speculation about where he might live. In that neighborhood was an old shell of a house, and there was a night I got drunk with a few buddies and walked right down the block to it. Broken through the cellar and was instilled with fear of God the moment I felt the damp, sour air rush out. Did not go in, and this was way before my encounter with him. I think that might have been his home, but it was torn down that spring. Keep in mind this in not your typical neighborhood. It was a little cluster of homes on the outskirt of a deep north up MI town. All the homes are from the mining era of the 1800s. Just saying, this whole story doesn't take place in suburbia, USA. I will be going back in about a week though. That's terrifying, it must haunt you constantly. It makes me feel uneasy, but less so as the years pass by. It feels more and more like an isolated incident, but I still think about him when I camp/night hike up there. Like I mentioned earlier, the boogeyman is real. He's just biding his time with me. That's how I feel now. Pigmanfam, would you ever consider attempt trying to recreate that night? Go back to the house, at night, and take pictures? To find out answers. Yes, but it would be weird because that house is a rental, and I wouldn't want to invade anyone's privacy. There's also a lot that was out of my control, in terms of recreating the night. If I did it now I would just be taking pictures of some family's home at night under the glow of a street lamp. I could go through a section of woods nearby, mix it up. My family lived in Vermont for a number of years, in a small town called Northfield, south of Montpelier. There's a local legend in Northfield, of a thing known as the pigman. The story has multiple versions, as most do, but there are some parts that are always the same. Back in 1951, the night before Halloween, this 17-year-old kid named Sam Harris went out on his own with a basket of eggs to cause some mischief. Nobody knows exactly what happened to him, just that he never came home and was never found. Years later, some high school kids were out drinking behind the school one night during a dance when this thing came walking out of the woods on two human legs. It was naked, covered in white hair, and was wearing a hollowed-out pig's head like some grotesque mask. Link to phantomsandmonsters.com. Do you live in Vermont, Northfield?
Not much to say though I will say it sucks being stuck talking to one. First time. Was dark in the middle of desert. Sitting with buddy on watch. Notice a woman walking through the brush. Point this out to buddy, he takes a look and shrugs. Ask if we still got or should we interfere. Said we got plenty time, just watch. Both of us watching while off and on, one of us takes a break to look around. Eventually notice something weird was going on with her. Point this out to buddy. We both watch while this woman turns into a fucking coyote which then lopes away. Look at each other. WTF was that, I asked him. He states that sometime weird shit happens and that it's best to just not talk about it. Why? Who would believe us? Good point, get back to being on watch, I am so demanding a bonus. He looks at me, shrugs and says yeah, that tends to happen. Much later. Get sent into gas station for drinks and or snacks. Notice a woman that looks familiar, aw fuck it. Go and get all the shit. Walk right past her, couldn't help but shiver, something was off about her. Get in line for the cash register. Notice she walks up right behind and smiles. Fuck. One of the weirdest / scariest conversation I have ever had. Finally pay and leave. Get in the ride, buddy notices I look spooked. He asks what's up, ask him if he remembers that one time with Coyote Chick. He gets this strange look and tells me not to say any more. As we're pulling away, notice the woman comes out and stares before ducking behind a corner. While driving for a little while, notice a coyote in the brush staring with weird ass eyes.
This might be a bit out there, but hear me out because I have some stories to tell. I'm a New England Anon. Lived in and around small town New Hampshire/Massachusetts for most of my life. I have a friend who moved out to an even more remote small town up in the sticks of New Hampshire, and I've driven out there to see him. The only good way to get there is to go through the small town of Hillsborough, which requires hopping on the very obscure Route 149 that goes from Weir, New Hampshire up into and through Hillsborough. For those unfamiliar with the area, all of you I reckon, this isn't really a highway like an interstate. Hell, it isn't even much like other routes. That area of southern New Hampshire is surprisingly hilly and wild. The route wraps around sharp inclines and passes by various swamps and dark woods. The woods of New England are usually thicket right on the sides of the road, but when driving this route at night, the only times I have, it's obnoxious how upon you the woods become. I recall having an aunt from West Texas who proclaimed, "How the hell do any of you drive anywhere? The wilderness is right next to you." Anyway, I've only driven the route a handful of times, and always exclusively at night between the hours of 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. The route itself also passes by like 3 graveyards, and the area itself is usually laden with heavy fog. It's genuinely disturbing if you allow yourself to be sucked into the ambience. I drive a lot for my job, and for some reason this road has always filled me with dread and anxiety, and that was before anything weird has happened on it. I'll detail 2 of my experiences in green text form. I'll try and keep them brief. One of them happened literally the other night, and I've been meaning to make this thread because it inspired me so much. I haven't encountered anything supremely paranormal, so this sticks out. I guess most of you probably can't relate, but if you have any other creepy highway or road stories, then post them up. First story. Be me, about a year ago. First time driving up to my buddy's house. Following Google Maps. About an hour and a half drive. It's around 7:30 p.m., freshly dark. Load up some music and start driving. First thing that surprises me is how secluded these roads are. This can't surely be the fastest way to my buddy's house. Follow the road as best I can, otherwise get there without an incident. Have a good time with my friend's family and chat about the drive up. He agrees that it's definitely a trek. I blew a tire on the drive once. Was stuck out there for an hour waiting for AAA. Right in the middle of a woods, next to a swamp. Pretty creepy, man. Tell him that I wasn't looking forward to the drive back, but that I'll manage. Don't drink or do drugs or anything due to the unpredictability of the road. When it's time to leave, about 2 a.m. or so, I decide to lean into my fear. I load up one of those creepy stories YouTube videos that's like 3 hours long. The drive isn't nearly 3 hours, so that should keep me awake. Get a coffee and chug it at a 24-hour convenience store and start the drive back down. The video works great. Random stories about skinwalkers and ghosts and spooky shit. I'm pretty tired too, so I keep swearing I'm seeing stuff in the corners of my headlights. Enjoying myself despite being creeped out. Keep driving. Get pretty into some stories, other ones I tune out and think about other stuff. Pull over to take a piss in a woods. Nothing creepy happens. Eventually the video cuts out whilst I'm driving. Check my phone to see if I lost internet connection. The video is over. It was at least 3 hours long. Like 3 hours 19 minutes or something. Look at the time, it's after 5 in the morning. I had been driving for the entire duration of the video. Check the Google Maps and it says I'm still a half hour out from my destination. I lost like 2 hours of time that night. No explanation why. Second story. Happened just the other night. Drive up to buddy's house. This time I stay cognitive the entire time due to my previous experience with Route 149. It was a cooler night, really foggy too. Once again the drive up was uneventful. Besides an weird amount of roadkill and passing cars with one headlight out. I've learned my lesson, and during the drive down, around 11 p.m. this time, I stay to pop country radio stations instead of spooky shit. Once I hit Route 149 I didn't see a single other car. On every other road, downtown Hillsborough, Route 77, and then later on Route 3 there were a good deal of drivers. Route 149 was a dead zone. Very eerie. Whilst driving, I'm racing down the hills to get home as fast as possible. All the roadkill got me worried about passing animals. A common concern of my area, it can kill you. Eventually hit a sharp left turn that twists around and down a hill. Going pretty damn fast. Once I hit the bottom, there's several figures in the road. Like 4 to 5 deer right in the middle of the road. They're all gathered around and all look directly at me as I go down the hill. Hit the brakes a few dozen yards in front of them, my truck screeches to a halt. They're all very fucking dirty. Like it looked like they had been rolling in mud. None of them moved for a good few seconds. I'm genuinely frozen. I knew something was wrong. Just then at the side of the road I see something emerge. It's another deer, but it was on its hind legs. I couldn't tell if it was leaning against a tree or just standing. It was also dirty, but also covered in thick shades of brown and maroon. Maybe blood, or maybe it had red fur, I don't know. Its eyes weren't black, they were pure white. Like cue balls. Staring right at me from the tree lean at the edge of my headlights glow. It was tall as fuck, overshadowed my truck. Think, skinwalker and floor it out of there. The deer disperse as I take off towards them. Drive home fast as fuck. Fuck Route 149. Bad vibes. I'll also point out the town of Hillsboro is generally a little off. It's not too distinct when you're there, but it seems to have a seedier underbelly. It doesn't seem too different from any other small New England town, but it actually is far more sinister. It has one of the highest crime rates per capita of any New Hampshire community. This is including the generally secluded and impoverished northern part of the state. For some reason, Hillsboro brings out the worst in its community. It's cursed. I swear. Hello fellow New England Anon. I haven't been up to Washington ever, but I may do that tomorrow. I have a day off and might do some driving. It's funny. Despite my fears of Route 149, now it's only a few miles north of Mount Vernon, New Hampshire. Which is one of my favorite places on earth and is very cozy. Weird how that works. God bless New Hampshire. Great state, great people. Even if it has some creepy stuff. Good red, but also fuck that shit that would scare the heck out of me. I just noticed the significance because Hillsboro was the closest town we would go to that basically had everything you needed. Granted, this was in the 90s and 2000s, but either way. Thanks Anon. When it happened, the first thing I wanted to do was make a thread about it, but I was so exhausted, and had work the next morning, that I just went to bed. I don't think I'll drive on that highway again. I need to ask around and see if anyone in my area has ever had anything spooky happen. It's a really weird route though. There's not many reasons to drive on it unless it's needed. It's pretty out of the way, even by rural New Hampshire standards. I want to blame the standing deer on some sort of visual hallucination, but the whole thing was super fucking eerie. I've never seen deer hang around on the street like that unless there's a reason.